It's a universal belief that subscribe buttons are cursed. Each is like a person with their own disposition, and it is up to the subscriber to tame the wild nature of the subscribe button and bend it to their will. For those of you who are not weak-willed, I challenge you to yell "Sunachi" and press this button fearlessly. In return, you may just get unlimited analyzed anime and manga content from yours truly. Hey friends, Anime Analyzed here, and the topic of question today is chapter 1033 of our beloved One Piece. And of course, as usual, a customary spoiler warning for all of those who have not read this chapter yet. There are plenty of other One Piece and other anime and manga videos on this channel, and I urge you to watch those instead, but this is one of those chapters where I would just hate for you to be spoiled. But for the rest of you, let's jump right in. The 20-second recap is, Zoro continues to get sucked by his sword, and as if he didn't have enough to deal with, he has to fight a BDSM birdie at the same time. In the process, we are presented with a greatest hits album of Zoro sword moments, culminating in the revelation of this man. Oh yeah, and Zoro's officially using Conqueror's Haki, so yeah, there's a lot to break down. The character development of Zoro continues vehemently in this chapter, and really the biggest character development moment is when Zoro jumps down to save Sandai Kitetsu and Wado Ichimonji. In my recent memory, I can't recall a time that Zoro has been so kind to his swords. In fact, I don't even recall him ever calling them by their names in the middle of a fight. I mean, look at this panel. It's almost as if he's referring to a human. And this shift in Zoro's attitude towards his sword is both the vehicle for showing his growth, as well as building some much overdue lore. Speaking of lore, we are now introduced to Shimotsuki Ushimaru. Zoro recalls him being the old man in the village who taught him the Sunachi chant and the one who explains that people misunderstand cursed swords. These swords aren't just simply trying to kill their owner willy-nilly, they're actually trying to wait for an owner who's powerful enough to wield them. This is accompanied with the information that Kozaburo is the founder of Zoro's village, as well as the creator of Wado Ichimonji and Enma. Furthermore, we learn that the two swords Zoro used to fight Kuina were also actually Kozaburo swords, but like, really bad ones. This makes perfect sense. Kuina is a polished student of the way of the sword, whereas Zoro is just this gung-ho idiot who doesn't really understand swords. Nevertheless, we know that Kozaburo saw something in Zoro because, although he couldn't make any good swords, he still took the time to make swords for Zoro as a starting place for his journey. I almost see Zoro's journey as a swordsman being linked to him attaining and taming Kozaburo's various swords. He starts with some ragtag no-names, graduates to the Wado Ichimonji when he takes the vow to be the greatest, and now must tame Enma to unleash his potential as a conqueror. And as if I couldn't harp on this enough, it's truly amazing how Oda can interlink these stories to such a high degree. As the audience, we have vested interest in Zoro's growth, unless you're a Sanji stan on Reddit. But what this backstory does is deeply root Zoro's growth into the world building and debunk many preconceived notions about cursed swords in an organic yet interesting way. So although Zoro's character growth has come very late, it is fitting that it must happen now. Oda is also shifting the way we see these swords from some sort of demonic presence to now looking at them like Zoro's partners. Enma draining Zoro's haki isn't some kind of trial by fire thing that he needs to overcome. It's more like an argument between two people that'll be fixed with a mutual understanding. This is really cool because it's the first time that Zoro has to do more than just tank some damage to get over his opponent, which again, does loads for his character development. And as if that wasn't enough, Oda also included flashbacks of moments where he attained his three swords, and although this hit me right in the feels, it also did something much more important. These panels aren't just some reminder to the audience to jog their memory, they're Zoro's thoughts. This further solidifies that he is beginning to truly care for his swords and see them as partners rather than objects. But enough with this scene. How does this affect the story as a whole? Well, in Whole Cake Island, Oda debunked everything we knew about Sanji. By building his character back up, Oda not only gave Sanji some much needed revival from his nosebleedy ways, but also arguably brought him to his final state as one of the wings of the Pirate King. And I don't mean this simply in a power standpoint, I mean that the one thing he was lacking was complete and utter belief in Luffy, and he attained that. So it would be quite fitting if Zoro's character is also debunked in a similar fashion. The one member of the crew we thought was already a complete character realizes his flaws at the very last moment and becomes the polished final form cog in the Pirate King's crew. Thus, the whole development saga of the Straw Hats comes full circle, and the crew can finally make their sail towards Laugh Tale. How poetic. And currently, I'm thinking this flaw has to do with the swords being partners thing, or embracing his conquerorness. I'm not too sure, but I am certainly very interested in how this fight ends. And to add fire to the symbolism train, we learned that Enma is named after the Buddhist king of Hell. Zoro's attacks and overall demeanor of course fit the whole god of the underworld theme, but it makes me wonder, is it possible that Oda is trying to build some imagery here, where Zoro is the king of the underworld and Luffy and Sanji are the kings of the human realm and the sky in like a Greek mythological sense? We know Oda loves religious symbolism, so I could very well imagine this being the case, but of course, don't quote me on that. Let's not forget our beloved BDSM Birdie though, who also had some minor development. We learned that the Lunarians were extremely strong and were a legitimate threat to the world at some point in time. Furthermore, we learned that they are referred to as gods. There's that word again. I'm not too sure where Oda is trying to go with this yet, but King is shaping up to be a great antagonist. I can also imagine looking back at this chapter many years later and feeling utter sympathy for King and his race. Either way, my opinion of King is raising by the week, now that he's been set up in both a comedic and a tragic way. Also, as a side note, I was a bit confused by the fact that we were learning about King through Queen in his fight against Sanji. I can't really imagine what had to happen for Queen to start talking about King with Sanji, but it is a nice touch nonetheless to see this moment of understanding and intrigue from Sanji. I'm very curious to see if and how Oda will intertwine these two battles. Big climaxes are ahead and I cannot wait to see them. And if you can't wait till the next chapter, I'm sorry because you're gonna have to. But in the meantime, you could watch some of my other videos to help appease that hunger of yours. Please leave a like and subscribe to this channel and I'll see y'all later.